Hello, everyone, and welcome to this San Diego ComicCon at Home 2020 panel for Quibi's Don't Look Deeper. It's premiering on Quibi on July 27th. My name is Perri Nemiroff, and I'm with Collider, and I'm just so thrilled to be here right now to moderate this conversation with some of the cast and crew for you. But before we introduce them, how about a look at Don't Look Deeper? Let's roll the trailer.
Have you ever had one of those dreams that feels totally real? And once you wake up, it's a total relief.
Today started pretty good, I guess.
See you tonight.
I love you.
Love you too, baby.
Come on, we're late.
I hung out with Carrie. Levi and I conspired about our weekend. And it all went to shit.
That's cymatics, patterns created through vibrational frequencies. Oh, Aisha.
It happened again. Third time this year.
What happened, baby? What happened?
Memories get taken from me sometimes.
What the hell? Where did you go? I've been texting you all night.
We can't keep doing this. It's not right.
There's no choice. If she becomes aware, it's only a matter of time before they become aware.
You really made a mess this time. Does she know where she came from?
Hi, my name is Aisha. If you're seeing this video, it means... Well, it means that...
Please say hello to the cast and crew of Don't Look Deeper. We have creator and writer Jeffrey Lieber here, director Catherine Hardwicke, and stars Helena Howard, Emily Mortimer, and Don Cheadle. Hello, everybody. Welcome.
What up? What up?
Oh my gosh, it took us so long to get here. That line at JFK, man. Wow.
Crazy, right?
Ridiculous.
Don, I wanted to start with you on this one because you're kind of the San Diego Comic-Con pro of the bunch, and I don't think anyone ever expected us to be filming panels from Home Sweet Home. So what does it mean to you to be able to keep the Comic-Con spirit alive this way? And also, what is it like bringing an original story outside of the MCU to the convention?
Well, it's definitely a very different experience, not just for me, but obviously for everyone to be in this sort of paradigm right now while we're trying to keep ourselves engaged. And, you know, we know how valuable entertainment is at a time when we're all locked down and, you know, stuck in our homes trying to make the best of things. And it's cool to still be able to engage and to, you know, keep bringing things up. And it's not the same as sitting in one of those huge rooms with 11 million people screaming. But I think at this time, it's better to not be in that COVID bath. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be here, you know, talking about this. It's a lot of fun, interesting film.
So Jeffrey, can you take us back to the very beginning on this one and just the genesis of the idea and what inspired it?
Charlie McDonald, who's not here with us at the moment, came to me with this idea that he had based on his being sort of a YouTube star for years, and he was really interested in the idea of how people are perceived and who they want to be. And so he and I started batting things around, and the two things that came up to me that were really fascinating were, I've got two kids. I've got a daughter who's a little younger than Helena and Aisha. And she has, since the beginning of her life, really tried to figure out what is hers and what is ours. What is her programming, her DNA? What is her genetics that we gave her? What is her machine learning? And so it was really interesting to me to think about those ideas because I'm watching her struggle with them, and then on my side, being a parent, trying to be able to say to her, these are things we gave you, these are things you've learned on your own. So that was one thing that really interested me. The other was I'm fascinated by people who don't know their birth story. who don't know the truth. We as adults spend a lot of time keeping our kids away from all of our dark and dirty parts. And so, you tell these stories like, oh, I met your mother here, and you leave out all these huge pieces that are more complicated and sometimes more interesting. And so we started telling a story about this girl who didn't understand her birth story, really, and her two parents who were trying to both protect her and raise her and teach her, and all the complications about that. And the AI piece of it is interesting genre stuff, but the human stuff that these three actors brought to life was all what really interested me and Charlie.
So it's you, Charlie, and then we also have Bianca Sams and Emily Diana Ruth involved in a particular episode. So can you talk a little bit about assembling your writing team and why their voices were necessary for those chapters?
Yeah, I mean, it was important. Bianca is a writer who I've known for a while now and is just brilliant. And so I brought her on because I knew that she would understand the voice of the show, and she would understand. She was the closest to being Aisha's age of any of us, so we needed somebody who wasn't from the ancient days. And Emily and Charlie have been in a relationship for a while, and she was there. She was really good at being able to both write, she's a great writer, but also be able to sort of deepen the emotional things that were sort of his primal genesis for the show. So we just sat around in a room for 3 weeks and just sort of walked our way through the story. And it was, as Katherine will shortly talk about, this is this interesting collision between TV and film. And it's an uneasy collision between TV and film. And I think we're just learning out how to make that stuff work. And that was one of the things we struggled with as we put the piece together.
With that in mind, Katherine, was there any, nerves or apprehension on your end when you were approached to direct a Quibi, especially before we really understood what one was?
Actually, I thought it sounded very exciting. I love to do new things. I love a challenge. I love something that's difficult. So I was just kind of intrigued by this. How do you, which actually Jeff and Charlie and everyone had already done, made these great chapters, these 10-minute chapters. So that was kind of neat and fun. And then we found out about the vertical and horizontal technology. My head exploded, but I love the challenge. Yeah.
That turnstile technology is really something else. So what do you think it is about this story in particular and that technology and also the chapter format that really comes together?
Well, one thing that's great about the turnstile technology, we're used to seeing art in like a vertical format, like a portrait, and we're used to seeing it in landscape. So we have the option in this series to see it either way. You can either watch it in the landscape where you see more of the environment and how the environment affects Aisha, or you can see it in a vertical where you actually get more intimate with all of our three main characters. So you can almost be the editor as you're watching it. You can decide, I want to be in close and see what what his expression looks like. I want to see Emily. I want to see them in more detail. And then it feels like you're almost, FaceTiming with the person. But in the landscape, you get the environmental effect. So that was very exciting, but there are very different formats as an artist. Usually the reason it's called a portrait, it's usually there's one person in the shot. So it's fun to figure out how to connect two people.
There was something about the 10-minute format that made it kind of almost like a perfect feature film script, because something exciting happens every 10 minutes and it's very tight. And so every 10 pages, something really cool happens that shifts and turns the action. And that's really how any good script should be, but most aren't. And so there was, to me, it felt like making an indie movie, because you made it in the time that it would take to make an indie movie, but that one that was written in such a kind of, just exact and precise and just sort of cool way that it was like making a really good independent film.
Normally, the format doesn't necessarily change the storytelling, but in this case, having to fit them into these little boxes made you sort of ruthless with things, which is like, when you're in a big screenplay, you can wander around for a little bit because you'd be like, oh, they'll do this. But when you know that you have to land these short pieces, you look at everything with this sort of like, do I need that? Do I need her to come down the stairs? Do I need, and that in some ways, that ruthlessness helps in some ways. And I think should be applied to longer pieces also.
Just so everybody can have a better idea of who you guys are actually playing, would the cast mind doing a little character 101?
I'm Helena, and I was Aisha, a teenage girl living in Merced, California with her widowing of a father. And she goes to therapy sessions because she feels like there's something really wrong with her, something missing. And she can't fit in, even though she's really popular and has a really hot boyfriend. But yeah, no, there's something really wrong with this girl.
I play Aisha's father, Martin. He's a professor, and he is, I think, very broken from the loss of someone very close to him and the disillusion of a relationship. And I think all of these characters, in a way, are missing pieces and trying to find out who they are and, struggling with questions of identity in many ways and how they fit in. And Martin is no different. And I think he probably, to not a healthy degree, attached to Aisha in a way that is desperate, and he needs her very, very much. And that sort of sets us on our path. Yeah, it's hard to talk about too much without giving a lot away, huh?
I was very impressed by that description, though.
I'm pretty damn good at this. I mean, really, when you think about it.
Emily, how about for you now?
I'm Aisha's therapist, and I'm also an AI expert.
Speaking of the big role that AI does play in this story, is that something that generally interests all of you? And is there anything about just the real state of AI in our world today that you learned while making this?
I learned the term social embed on the show. And when I was working on another show, they were briefing us for, interviews and stuff. And I saw social embed, and I was sort of freaked out by that because I'd never heard the term social embed until this show, Don't Look Deeper. And social embed is sort of to help with networking and the ad companies, and to see how to sort of gauge what the audience and people like. So that was kind of interesting to me.
And that's a person or a thing? What is a social embed? I don't know. What is that?
So in our show, it's the robot.
Yeah.
And in our life, it's a person who is sent out by these companies, be it Amazon or something, to help with social media and networking. So it's really freaky. It's very, similar.
When Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking are don't be excited about AI. Don't be so happy to, give everything over to artificial intelligence. I'm I'm going to go with those guys. On paper, I guess it's kind of feels yeah, sure, I want something to be able to anticipate my needs and serve me in a way, and maybe even go into dangerous situations that I don't have to, and it can take the risk, and as a human I can sit back. But I think every dystopian movie that we've ever seen about what happens when the machines go, why do we need you? I think, especially since we're the ones programming it, we're already putting that kind of thought in there. So unless they're programming us to believe that somehow, AI would need people other than to, there was a very interesting conference that a friend of mine said that he attended where they were asking either Big Blue, one of those huge computers, they were doing a Q&A with the audience. They were letting the audience just ask it questions directly. And it said, one of the audience, I think one of the last questions said, so what will you do with humanity in the future? And it answered, we will keep some of them around in sort of a human zoo so that we remember the history. And everybody laughed. And it was like, I don't understand the laughter. I wasn't attempting to make a joke. And that was the end of the session. So don't be so excited about AI.
You can shut it down and then try to reprogram it.
It'll turn itself back on.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think I think that what Jeffrey and Katherine have done so well with this is and Helena and her amazing performance is that it taps into a feeling that you have about yourself, that you kind of, in this day and age, we are bits of AI almost, where we're becoming algorithms of ourselves or something, where we're being so controlled by the kind of the things that we tap into, the people that understand how to use the information that we give them when we tap into our computers, that you kind of start feeling a paranoia about, I don't know really who I am or what I like or what I think, because I'm just having all this stuff fed back at me all the time that is supposedly is basically just sort of algorithms working out what I want to buy or something. But it's a very like dystopian existence that we're living ourselves. And I feel like there's something about Aisha's predicament that one can really relate to, not as a robot, but as a human that feels like a bit of a robot from time to time.
I start to wonder what the difference is between us and them. I mean, if you are a creature who believes you were born in a certain way and that you lived a certain life and so on and so forth, and you've been programmed to have certain ideas and so on and so forth, including empathy and fear and anger and so on and so forth, it becomes very hard to know the difference between AI and humanity. I mean, we are essentially all those things, right? We have our DNA is a certain kind of programming, our genetics are another kind of programming. We have the ability to learn certain new things.
One thing that I thought was great about what Jeff and everyone wrote is that it is about our love-hate affair with technology. It really shines a spotlight on that. You're being pushed and pulled both ways, just like we are here on this panel. There's fun stuff about, AI, like the virtual idols in China that sing songs and they have concerts with, 10,000 people attend and they're not even a real singer. So there's like cool stuff that's imaginative, but then there's, all the sides that we fear. So I love that this series is exploring all that. Our love-hate affair with technology.
Emily, for you being the AI expert of Don't Look Deeper here, what do you find to be the most difficult thing to portray in that sense? Is it just nailing the tech jargon, or is it the physical elements on set of actually using the touch screen and using certain items? How do you sell that best?
Uh-oh. Can anyone hear Emily?
I muted myself because there's wind howling outside my window. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
I love that, Emily, by the way, that as you're being asked about the tech quality, you end up muted.
I think I'm actually kind of dyspraxic or something. I panic when someone asks me if it's left or right. Like I can't really get my left or my right worked out. And when someone ask me to tell the time and it's a clock, I just get paralyzed. So anything to do with like computers and banging on screens and the jargon, like code numbers. I mean, it was oh my God. Yeah.
You had all the admins.
Admin code 359. I mean, no. But what I did get into was what Katherine really brilliantly kind of pointed out was that the thin line between an artist and a scientist, like somebody who is kind of you have to have a great imagination to be a great scientist. You have to sort of take big leaps into the unknown. You have to think of the impossible and kind of dream big. And also you have to be undeterred when everyone's telling you, no, this is impossible, this can't happen, this can't work. there's no money, we can't do this, whatever. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going with a kind of dogged determination. And I think as kind of bottom feeder artists, as we all are, whatever we are, you really can relate to that. And Katherine was the one that kept saying that. She kept saying, I really understand this character. She's an artist. And I was like, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, she is. And so that's how I overcame I compensated for the inability to press the right button on the right screen.
But I think also you know, from my observation and in my working with you, you also always really made it about character. It wasn't really so much about being, you know, a nerd or a tech head or anything like that. It was like, who is she? Where did she come from? Where she has this drive? You know, it was always about what deficiency in her personality allows her to be on, you know, this dogged path and overlook things that, you know, many of us would go, hey, but you shouldn't do that to another human. You're like, well, I'm on a journey and I'm going to do this, you know, and of course it's Jeff's script and everything, but you really, I think, found places or always were asking the right questions around around humanity and who she was and what was driving her.
Really grounded the story.
Thanks, guys.
I saw your script. It was like full of notes.
Yeah, took a lot of notes.
One of the things that I found that all three of these guys did, and everybody, Katherine, is embrace the parts of each of the character that were not immediately likable, because they were necessary in order to tell the story. And so when the footage would come back and we sit in the edit room, it was just amazing to watch these three incredibly likable people resist the urge to want to be likable on screen, and therefore ultimately stick the landing of humanity. That was the thing. Compared to all the things I've ever seen these guys in, they're just super different than I've ever seen them be. And it's kind of revelatory and amazing to watch that happen.
The awkward date between Emily and Dawn is just like a masterclass in acting. I love the strange things you guys did in that scene.
Very strange. There's some strange people trying to figure out how to be human. I mean, they're the most, you want to talk about AI and all that stuff, they're two of the most non-human humans. I think we used to talk about that. Like, they just don't know how to human, these two people.
Emily's on a date eating like a muffin with her finger. There's just so many little weird details, and, you know, it's beautiful.
Emily and Don, I did want to ask you guys about working together, because I feel like this is just like my own brain going down a weird tangent, but whenever I see two actors who I have admired for years and years and years, I always just make the assumption that they worked together before. That is not the case for you two here. So coming together on set for the first time, what is something about each of you that kind of just, you know, blew your mind, exceeded your expectations?
Well, he was just hilarious right from the get-go, and I always just really, I mean, both with Helena and with Don, but Don and I were together in pretty much every moment, and stuck together, sort of sitting, eating. Well, I was always eating very unhealthy things from the craft services, and he was eating much more much more awarely, but he's interested in the kind of, you know, the messy and he's not scared of it, either in life or in his performances. And so it makes for really a fun hang when people aren't scared of that stuff, because you can talk about that stuff, and you can talk about that stuff in the way that you're performing and what you're going to do in your scenes, but you can also talk about it in life. And it just, I had such a great time with being with Don and hanging, apart from anything else. There's such openness and such kind of, you know, willingness to just chat about it all, and nothing needs to be a mystery, and we can all just sort of, I don't know, he's just a really, really amazing actor and a really amazing guy. And I'm very
thank you. Well, I would say the same, both for Emily and for Helena. I think we all really had to trust each other, and we were very much open to, nothing was off the table. There was no, I can think of specific times when each of them said to me, like, I need this from you, and can we try to work this in? And there was, like Emily was saying, there was no preciousness about that, or, don't step on my work. It was, very collaborative, and we knew that we were, and this was a tricky shoot. Katherine can attest to that. This was a tough shoot. We had some tough locations, and we had some very technical things we had to pull off, and very long days, and a tight schedule. Everything, we're used to that, always swimming uphill in these kinds of budgets, these kinds of shows. But particularly in this one, it had some very interesting challenges to it. But yeah, the work process with both of them was very, very open, very gregarious. We all hung out and got along, and that's not always the case. And again, we're very open to sharing how to work and what the work was and our ideas about it. It wasn't sort of like, stay out of my business. It was like, well, let's chop this up. Let's figure this out. Let's find some ways to get into this elliptically. Let's find the weirdest way to have this conversation. I mean, Emily and I talked about that all the time, like, and Katherine too. It's like, okay, what's the weirdest way that we can do this? What's the strangest, most head-cocking way that we can figure out who these people are? Because when you look at the story without giving it all away, what they're attempting to do and what these guys are doing together is bizarre. So, how does this work? How does it really work in the real world? And so that's something that we talked about a lot, and yeah, very open to each other. And I think that was really a testament to who, you guys put together.
I really love hearing about collaborations like that. Helena, this is also a pretty big deal for you. What was it about Aisha and her story that made you think this is the right story and character for me to tackle?
I really loved this story because, as people have said, this is, it's very humane. It's about humanity. It's just different people with different stories, different experiences, the human experience. I think it has a lot to relate with the society that we live in as well. And I really connected to that and related, and could definitely put my own experiences with how I felt. And, even the people that you think are evil, they have, their own stuff going on. Like, no one is a bad guy or a good guy. So that's pretty awesome.
All the motivations in this are very clear for every single character, and I think that's what makes the story so human and so powerful, regardless of the AI involved. Helen, I'm also a huge fan of Josephine Decker, so I'm just curious, having worked with her on Madeline's Madeline, is there anything that she did for you as a director on that set that you find yourself thinking of when you go on to new projects?
Josephine and I are still really good friends. I'm friends with Katherine, and it was really great working with Dawn and Emily. Learned a lot from them because they're amazing people and amazing at what they do. And Jeff's an all right guy.
I think that's generous of you, so I appreciate that.
You're all right.
No. I aspire to all right.
He's that guy in the corner, editing the script. But yeah, Josephine definitely had this structure with freedom in her work that I like to carry through with whatever I go on to. It's like, because I went to a conservatory and performing arts high school, And I think whenever you go to a place like that, it's easy to get wrapped up in the work that they're trying to condition you to believe, maybe. And some people do, you know, like in your body, you know, and the way that you're speaking and remembering how to hold your neck and stuff, and like just letting yourself be free and organic and everything, and just like living your truth and acting, you know, and reacting. And that's why it was so great being in the scene, you know, with Dawn or with Emily, because it was just playing off of each other and ricocheting and just, you know, not having to force anything. And, you know, if we win again, maybe trying something different, you know. Whereas if I were, you know, trying to do something that I had learned previously from, you know, an institution and being wrapped up in my head, maybe I would be focused on the way that I was, you know, sitting, or the way that I was delivering my lines or whatever. But in everyday life, when you're speaking, you're not thinking about what you're going to say, you know?
In that case, what kind of notes and collaboration did you have with Katherine while you were on set? Because in the way you're describing body language right now, that is extremely important from chapter to chapter with this character. So how do you guys nail that for her journey, but also make it feel natural for you?
Well, there were a lot of stunt rehearsals. And Heidi Moneymaker was really helpful. She's awesome. And we had stunt rehearsals in pre-production and then also throughout to help with the build-up in certain scenes, because, you know, you don't want to like get it in your body and then lose it before, you know, you actually go. And, you know, I keep saying, you know, but you don't know yet. I have to tell you first.
Help us know.
I'm trying.
Katherine was one of the first Quibi shows to go. So we were reinventing the wheel in some ways and trying to rethink everything. And we're now, in this moment now, going to have to do it all again as an industry. We're going to have to rethink everything. And I think it's a burden on us, but it's also a huge opportunity because there's a ton of stuff, and Katherine's really good at this, of saying, why do we do this way? The process itself was totally different than what we were used to doing.
Well, I want to ask, if I can, Emily, aren't you working right now?
I may be working at some point soon.
What the hell?
It's not happening yet, but it may. And yeah, it's bananas, but it's also, in a way, to Jeffrey's point, it's kind of cool because there's something kind of amazing about the kind of attempt to try and find a way through in a safe way. And I guess the choice is either just stop life until there's a cure for this thing, or there's a
ding, 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 ding.
or you try and find a way to work and to make things and to do things together. But it's a mad struggle, and who knows whether it will come off. But so I agree with what Jeffrey's saying. It's like, what's so cool about this moment, but also Quibi in a way was kind of, it was almost prophesying some kind of big sea changes that, or parts of a sea change that was already happening, where the kind of the world as we know it or knew it is breaking down, and it's horrifying in a million ways, but it's also, as we're seeing in our culture, like letting the floodgates open for change, and barriers are coming down in a way as a result, we hope. So and that's not, you know, that's in every aspect of our lives. And so I feel like it's a really scary moment, and it's also a hopeful one. So God knows what's going to happen to my particular job, but I do think that the industry is going to survive and has to survive. And as I said at the beginning of the conversation, we're bottom feeders. We're good at surviving as actors and writers and directors. We're good at working out how to make something out of nothing, out of working out how to survive difficult circumstances and how to kind of go into battle in order to make something and to make an entertainment to cheer people up. And that's sure as hell as needed now as it ever was.
We also should take a cue from Katherine with her masks, it's just like the most beautiful thing in the world. And I feel like if I was that fashionable, I would be so excited to have a collection like that.
Oh, she cut that off of the bottom of her. You cut that off the bottom of your blouse and made a mask out of it?
2 minutes ago. While we were on this call, she made that.
But what was so cool was each of them this is the director's dream, that when you have your first rehearsal with the actors, that everybody has become that character and comes to the rehearsal and the set with their character and their ideas that you could never even imagine. It's written in the script, but then they've breathed this whole kind of crazy, quirky life to it. And so each moment I felt that, especially these three, were so in the moment and so right there, that I was surprised half the time by what they did. All the time. They just approached it in this really unique way. And I think when Helena said that she would be able to react, each person would react to each other, it's just a joy for a director and a writer and everyone to see the life coming in and how much they added how they added more layers and more depth and pushed us, all the time. Why am I doing this? And that just makes it better and better and better. So every day I felt like, yeah, this thing is getting elevated, richer, weirder. And Don, I remember one of the last days or at the end of the day, he goes, "Keep it weird." I'm like, okay. I put that in the editing room. Keep it weird.
Yeah.
Freak.
Every day we were freak.
I felt like that from listening to Helena talk about her sort of what she learned from Josephine and her process or whatever, really reminded me of how exciting it was to work with her, because she really, she's really brave, really. Like, she really does act in the way that she described, where it's just new every time and comes from a real place every time. And it was really exciting. And it really, I felt, set the tone for the kind of way that the attitude that we all had. And that she was the leader, really, of that, of the cast in that way, that her attitude was so punk rock and exciting to be around, and I felt elevated and challenged by it. And it was so cool listening to the way that she spoke about it, because it brought me back to the feeling of being around. It was her energy that gave you the confidence to kind of be brave.
You also can't work with a super cute pet in something and not have me ask you about it. So what was it like working with the ferret Picasso?
You can ask Don too. The ferrets are so cute. They're like cats, which Don is also allergic to cats. He's not allergic to ferrets, but
I could do it.
I said also, but yeah, he's just allergic to cats. Which there are funny stories about that. Yeah. But yeah, they kind of smell like pee. And apparently, if like they start licking at your skin, that means that they can like smell like they're trying to get your blood. I'm like, dude, maybe he's just friendly. He's a baby, Okay, it's time to go back in the cage. But he's so cute and he smells like pee. Yeah, and they shed a lot, so. But
the ferret was pretty good. It hit its mark every time. Whenever we needed it to run across the cage, it came right there to you. It liked you. The ferret was pretty good performance.
And there's by the way, there's a whole story. Charlie has a cat. Charlie's a cat person. And so it was a cat at the beginning, and then we had also complications. We had a dog, and it was a snake for a short period of time, and then became a ferret. So that animal kept kind of changing what it was. We never got anything bigger than the ferret. We never went to like a alpaca or anything like that.
An alpaca would have been very interesting.
That would be.
Oh, it's hilarious.
This is a very specific question about the set design, but I definitely took notice of the picture frames in Picasso's cage. What inspired that decision?
Since Helena's character Aisha is an artist, we thought that she also like decorated the cage and made his cage like really cool and had pictures in there and her little drawings in there too. So, you know, the art just overflowed to the animal. Wow, I can't even believe you noticed that.
Katherine, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about just the visual style here, and specifically about your choice to largely go with handheld camera work and how that thought process pairs with the idea of watching the content mobile first. Did those two things just marry together naturally?
That's kind of interesting because, you know, you could say that handheld is just another camera technique. It can be smooth handheld, it can be more jerky. Ours is kind of smooth handheld, but we really wanted that intimacy and that kind of humanity where you actually almost feel the camera person as part of the dance. You know, you can almost feel a camera person breathing, and that way he could react also to the actors and follow, make like those infinitesimal adjustments so that we didn't have to have it's a lockdown shot, you can't move an inch. It just was more spontaneous, more human, I guess. Yeah,
definitely comes through that way. Jeff, I also wanted, this is very random, but I am obsessed with Jurassic Park, and I am curious if that was an influence at all here.
I think all of those movies are an inspiration. But again, I go back to, for me, you know, Charlie had his own point of view, but for me, it came back to raising children. I mean, really did. Every piece of it was about what do you tell them? What do you keep from them? What do they have to stumble on their own? And most importantly, you know, my kid's supposed to go to NYU in the fall and supposed to individuate. And I can't tell you, a day does not go by that I don't have to wander into her room and say, it's going to be really hard. I'm going to screw this up a ton. My son, who's younger, will get the benefit of all that stuff. But I mean, it's just hard to figure out how to take these things that you were trying to keep alive for so long and let them be their own person. And that's kind of what this story is about from the point of view of the adults. From Emily, from Helena's point of view, it's how do I get to be my own thing where I have as much freedom as every other adult around me. So it was just a bad attempt to figure out how to parent kids.
Well, it's a very effective way to approach that. As we wind down here, I just want to let everybody know this isn't just a sci-fi thrill. It is one with purpose that really gets at exactly what Jeff was just explaining, what makes us who we are and how we're influenced by those around us. So I really can't recommend it enough. Don't Look Deeper, available on Quibi on July 27th. That day, you're going to get the first 3 chapters, and then every weekday following, you get 1 new chapter until it concludes with chapter 14. So, guys, congratulations, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again for watching this. Tell everybody you know about Don't Look Deeper, and enjoy the rest of ComicCon at Home 2020.